right, guys. So we've decided what we're gonna do. We've got our dwarven paladin, and I just wanted to make a quick remark on the last episode. We talked about the different racial abilities, and I may have come across as I don't know, where I talked about the dwarven racial and how game breaking a single ability can be. While at the same time talking about really none of them actually matter all that much. And so one of the things that I did is I wanted to put a one of those tier lists. And I put it in the description on my YouTube channel on that video so that you can see that in reality there are other abilities that other races give you that are better for other roles that are being played. What I should have probably said is that for the gameplay that we're looking at doing with a paladin leveling up for the first time, we're going to be uh, probably doing a lot of leveling up in dungeons since we're doing this as a tanked leveling thing. Um, After I'm done with that, I'll probably go into like a guide tutorial on leveling up through the storylines so that you can see the different storylines. Can't really cover that in the first guide so much, seeing as how there's so much of it. If we look here at our cinematics, I mean, there's just too much to cover. I want this to be a general guide on being able to get back into the game or get into the game to begin with, and that's why I wanted to do the fresh start with this. And what I'll probably, like I said, do later is do a an additional guide later on where we go over, how to play Miss Pandaria. You know, Granted, Miss Pandaria is about to come out on the WoW Classic server, so if you really want to experience it, I definitely suggest doing the classic playthrough. I love the way that WoW finally came around to doing vanilla and then Burning Crusade and then Wrath and then they did Cataclysm. I was playing the crap out of Cataclysm and now they're fixing to do Mesa Pandaria. I'm really hoping that the anniversary realms get into Burning Crusade. I'm sure they're going to. It looks like that's in the game plan because I totally want to go back to playing Burning Crusade. I missed out on it when they did the first run through with the classic servers. Excuse me, I hadn't yet come back yet. But yeah, so for this one, we're going to be doing a lot of our leveling in dungeons. I'm going to show how to set up your UI, how to set up your keybinds, some of the things that I've learned from watching some of the other videos. Uh, I got to give a shout out to Quasi. If you've not checked out his videos on YouTube, it is Quazii, and he has excellent videos out there showing how to really break down some of the add-ons that are out there, how to really make them pop and work for you the way you want them to. He has some really good profiles for some of the add-ons, especially the Plater add-on. It helps out with the nameplates. It's something that we'll be going into later on in this series. Excellent add-on, Quasi, great one to be watching for. Um, there are people out there that are putting out some really great content on how to play the game, and I wanted this to be more for the brand new player or the player coming back and just feeling just fucking overwhelmed by everything like I was. I had to go back to play sod, which was Season of Discovery, which at the time, and it still is, it's in the vanilla stages. I tried playing hardcore, and that just kicked my ass. I got frustrated, so I jumped into Sod, and I was so familiar with that vanilla experience that even with the changes, it was fun. I could get back into playing WoW, jump into Cataclysm when it comes out. I'm familiar with Cataclysm. I get back into the feel of the game, get back into doing my thing, run a guild for a little while, get bored with Cataclysm, and bam, I come back to retail. and I have reestablished my knowledge that I'd been missing out the evolution of. So I get into retail and now I can finally start playing the game because I've been watching enough videos and things like that. And that's what I want this video to be is I don't want you to have to search around all over the place looking for this and stumbling upon the information. I want it to be right here in your face. Look, if you want to learn how to play the game and get into it quickly and have a good understanding of it, or you want to come back after a while, this is the video series that you need to spend an hour or two checking out. You don't have to watch every video. You don't need to watch the first video where I go through nothing but the settings. We don't have to you don't have to watch the videos where we talk about race and class selection if you know what you want to play. But I'm telling you, this episode is one you're probably going to want to watch because this is where I get into some of the things that will apply throughout the entire game from level 1 all the way up to the maximum level. So we've got our level 1 Dwarven Paladin. I'm still on my free trial. Um, I'm not sure if I'm going to have to actually pay money to upgrade it, or I might be able to go ahead and transfer money from my other account, and I'll buy a WoW token. You'll notice that once you get up to level 80, it's not hard to make gold, even for somebody who's not trying. We'll get into that in some of the much later episodes, but I can definitely show you how that is not hard to accomplish. Um, but if I can save, 15, $20 on a WoW subscription, then I'll do it that way instead of paying for that. But since it is a fresh account, I might have to go ahead and pay for the subscription fee for the first time. But we'll go ahead and do it so that we can get this fresh for new players and those coming back. So we are on the Agrimar realm. Vengeance, the level 1 paladin. Let's enter the world and see what we got. Now, I am going to skip over some of these cutscenes just for the sake of the video. When you're doing the playthrough, I do suggest watching the cutscenes, especially if you've never seen any of them before. Blizzard has always been well known for how well put together their cutscenes are, and just their videos and their graphics, even back in the days of Warcraft, Warcraft 3. I mean, just those Tauren riding along on their Kodo mounts with the war drums beating as they're charging towards the Alliance. I remember that type of stuff. And, Medivh flying around in his Raven form during Warcraft 3. And then the next thing you know, you're in a scene where Medivh is talking to Thrall, and I remember those things. And so I really do recommend as you're playing through the first time, not skipping the cutscenes that I'm going to be skipping to just save some time. Even though basically I'm talking enough that I could have just saved the same amount of time and watched the videos instead of talking about not watching the video. So, anyway, here we go. We're going to jump in. Now, since this is our first playthrough, we've never gotten to level 10. It's going to put us on Tutorial Island. Whenever you start a new character, you can decide whether Exile's
You are a
Reach is where
soldier
you
of
want
the
to go
Noble
first or not.
Alliance.
All right. And World of Warcraft has its own tutorial, and it's telling you how to position your hands and how to move around. This is basic freaking movement stuff. Everybody knows WASD. Okay, spacebar, jump. Okay, let's get this shit out of the way. Oh, we're looking around. We're walking around. Yep. Okay, cool. Look, there's somebody with a quest. All right, warming up. Prepare yourself. We're nearing the island. Warm up on these combat dummies. Warm up by fighting a combat dummy. Okay, cool. We're gonna go kill a combat dummy. Right click, kill a combat dummy. Let's use our Crusader Strike. Okay. Now we can click. Okay, but you don't want to be relying on clicking. One of the things about clicking shit all the time is you're taking your eye off of what's going on up here. You need to get used to hitting that button. You know, hitting that number one key if that's the one you're on. All right, so we killed our dummy. Gonna complete that quest. Oh shit, looks like we got some XP. Okay, going on to the next quest. We're gonna spar with Private Cole. And we're going to kick his ass real quick. Remember, like I said, we need to be ready to be hitting our keybinds. That number one key, he's spinning around on us. Use your movement of using both of your mouse keys, mouse buttons, and using the WASD. Get used to using both. It's going to really help you out with being able to do things like spam your keys when you need to. Right? All right, we kicked his butt. Now we need to find Captain Garrick inside the ship. Oh no, there's a storm. We have to get inside. All right, so there's some shit going on. We got to come in here. And oh, look, here's Captain Garrick. All right, we found her. Easy. Oh, and look, the storm happened. There's going to be another cutscene we're fixing to have to skip because we get shipwrecked on Exile's Reach. Here is where we're going to start off with some UI stuff. Okay? And right here is where I'm going to take a moment to point out some things. If you notice right off the bat, it has our chat screen right here. It's underneath my logo. I do that so I don't compromise anybody's, communications or anything. But one of the things you'll notice is you've got your cast bar here, and it's surrounded by these cool looking griffins. The griffins are cool and all, but like over here, you may not be able to see it. It's overlapping the chat. How can you create a game where your own UI elements don't even fit on your own screen? I mean, how do you design a game this way? You know? So one of the first things we want to do, and of course it's not going to let us. So we can't go into edit mode and change this stuff. One of the things we can do is start going over some of these controls. The biggest one I do is auto loot. We do not want to worry about what to pick up and what not. Later on in the game, when you are doing your farming and things like that, you're looking for specific materials, you might want to come back and turn that off so that you're picking up just certain things and not filling up your bags. Okay, whatever. Let me look. I don't think there's anything else. This is one that I have. All right, it's always adjust the camera, I think is the default, so that when you're looking, it automatically points your camera back in the direction you're traveling. I'm looking behind me, but I'm still pushing forward. And then the camera will start to follow me. Personally, I don't like that. So I turn that off. That's one of those ones that I don't want it to adjust the camera. I want to have complete control over the camera. Okay. Another one that they do is the interact key. So you have the F as the interact key. I will use this just real quick so that you can see what it is. Notice, I do not have this person targeted. That's Captain Garrett. Okay. But as I walk up to her, I'm now highlighting her and I can press F and I'm now interacting with her. That can make it very easy for things like when you're fishing or something like that. You can hit your interact key. Okay, so it looks like we've got another quest here. We're not going to worry about what the quests are right now. I'm trying to make these videos as short as possible because in total the series is going to be long. So I'll be skipping the quests, but please read these quests. Especially as a new player, read these quests. They're cool. They've got some cool little storyline stuff to them. Right now, what it is we're going to have to recover 6 first aid kits from Murlocs. Okay, we're going to go ahead and accept it. The reason is because, we got some people down here. I'm going to turn off the interact key. I don't like using the interact key. It messes with stuff. Plus, I use that F key for a different keybind. We're going to go over that real quick. Key bindings. Now, you can do character-specific key bindings where you have key bindings that are set for one character in total. Okay. Well, I like using um, global keybinds for a default setting because one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to add some more action bars in here. Okay. I don't know if it'll let us. It will. Okay, let's see. 6. Nope, it's not going to let us add 6 just yet. So, what we're going to do is set up some of our keybinds. Now, if you notice, I've got 3 bars down here now. One of the add-ons that I use is Bartender, simply because it lets me reframe these bars in a way that is smaller, more compact, more easily read, and I can stack them the way that I want to. I always put this stack up here. I have bar 6 that sits up here, and that's for my quick click stuff. If I need to be able to click something very quickly, it's in my bar 6. Well, right now, edit mode's not open, so bar 6 is up here in the middle, and that's stupid, so we'll deal with that later. But I also have a mouse that has a forward and back thumb keys, and I like to use those for abilities, right? So in our keybinds, here are my suggested keybinds, okay? This isn't for everybody, but this is what I suggest, even for new players. Okay, we're going to do a quick keybind mode. All right. So this one, that is my mouse button 5, which is my forward, my forward most mouse thumb key. Right. And actually, that one is supposed to be shift mouse button 5. And that one is mouse button 5. This one is shift mouse button 4, and this one is mouse button 4, right? Okay. The reason I do that is there are abilities that I want to be able to use that need a targeting reticle sometimes, or that I need to be able to get to very quickly. So that's where I put some of those. Um, what will happen is you will come up with your keybinds that you are comfortable with. Quasi goes over this a lot. This is actually where I learned this stuff. Um, you will learn where your buttons are at by the keybind and not by where they're at on your bar. Quasi actually plays without his bars even visible because he's gotten so used to knowing where his abilities are at, right? Even playing different characters. Like when I do it, for me, this shift mouse button 4 is always my interrupt. If it's on my rogue, it's always my kick. You know, that is my spell interrupt ability. This one I tend to have as my interrupt ability, which is like for the paladin, it's Hammer of Justice. We'll find out about that one later. Okay. What I'd like to do next is I change these up because right now, if I press, and it's not going to let me press them right now because I'm in this default mode, but if I press Q, I'm going to strafe sideways. Well, that's because if I press A, I turn sideways. You should never be turning with your mouse keys. You should never be doing this. It is too slow. You cannot react. It is much easier to just get used to doing this. Even if you're running around, doing stuff, you got your camera over here. Oh, now I'm switching directions. You should never be doing this right here, right? It should always be strafing. Strafing keeps you in sight of the boss or the mob you're on without you turning your back to him, right? So if you're attacking something and you need to get out of its radius, it's fixing to do some weird thing around it, and you get some swirlies, you need to run away, run sideways. Why? Because if you turn around and run backwards, you just turned your back to the monster, and that's bad. You cannot dodge, block, or parry blows that come from behind you. So you never ever want to turn with your keyboard. So what we do is we reassign those keys. Okay, so let's go back to our key bindings. We're just going to go to our movement keys real quick. So move and steer is middle mouse. I changed that one to auto run. Okay, so our middle mouse, let's see, toggle auto run. Number lock, I changed that one to middle mouse button. All right, and I actually use mine, I have it as shift middle mouse button. Right, middle mouse button is one of the ones that I will put over here or something. Now W, S, A, and D. Turn left. We're just going to get rid of that, right? Turn right. We're just going to get rid of that because turning left and right should not be done with the main keys that we're using. We need those keys, right? Now, strafe left and right, we can use and we can change into the keys that we were using for turning. A and D. So now we're still using W, A, S, and D, but we're now using them for forward and lateral movement, right? So now we have move and steer. We can do that just by pressing both mouse buttons. There's no need to worry about that. We can move. We can move side to side, W, A, S, and D, right? Now we have freed up Q and E. Instead of using them for strafing, we're using A and D for strafing. Q and E can now be used as keybinds over here. And so let's go ahead and get these fixed up again real quick. Because right here we go Q, E, and R. I also like to use F and Shift F, right? Now what you can also do is you can go Shift Q, Shift E, Shift R, things like that. Personally, I go Z, X, Z, X, Z, and V. Why? Because this corresponds with the same place they're at on the keyboard. I can look at this and visually know, oh, that's my V key. My finger travels right to the V key. What I'm looking for is this emblem right here, right? Action bar 10, whatever that is. It's sitting on V. And I know, oh, okay, wait, that's on my V key. I can hit my V key, right? My Crusader Strike, right? I know that's one I'm going to be using a lot. So I have it right up there on E. Q, E, R, F. Sometimes T's a little bit hard to reach. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I tend to actually have that as my top bar, and these two bars move down. We'll get into that later. But this way, you're setting up your keys in such a way that you can interact through your keybinds. And I hit cancel like a tard. So let me go through this again real fast. Let me see. All right. See how quick that was? I just know right where my keys are at too. And another one is I can do right here is I do mouse down. Oh, and it won't let me. See, this is why I use bartender. Because WoW won't even let you use this. I set this to my mouse down key. And you notice I've got, I can zoom in and out using my mouse wheel. I set that to shift mouse wheel. I hit shift and I move in and out. And then that way I can use my moving in and out with my mouse wheel. I can use that for spells. I can use that as another keybind. All right. So we've got that interface. Let's check this real quick. We're not worried about having nameplates for friendly players or for yourself or NPCs, right? What we want to worry about is enemies, enemy players, and enemy minions. Nameplates. We're always going to show the nameplates. Why? Because we're always showing enemy unit nameplates. Friendly nameplates, not worried about. Flash on aggro loss. This is a thing for tanking, but really it's not going to come in very handy. You'll see why when we get into more of the plater nameplate stuff, but it's okay to keep that one on. We're going to turn off these tutorials because That's what this is, a tutorial. And the Blizzard tutorials suck. Status text, we do want both. We want to see a numerical value and a percentage. What that is, it won't let me move it, is when you have somebody targeted, it's going to show a percentage and then it's going to show the actual number. Right? Outline mode. Right? So we want everything to be outlined. Quest objectives, mouse overs, targets, we want to see outlines. It makes everything easier to see. Chat bubbles, I like having them on so that you can see when people are saying something. Because a lot of times people will have add-ons. So, like, if they interrupted a spell, they'll have an add-on that says, I kicked this spell. And that immediately tells me, good, I don't have to worry about that one. Right? Um, replace my frame portrait. That's something you can do. If you do, it just changes it into the generic of what your class is. I like keeping mine on because I like my red bearded dwarf. Right? The rest of this stuff, raid frames. Um, I don't see it. It should be party frames. It's where you have raid style party frames, and I like having raid style party frames. But okay, so we're gonna display incoming heals. We're gonna display power bars because we want to be able to see who's low on mana, stuff like that. Sometimes people want to do it just on the healers. I do it on everybody. Aggro highlight display class colors. It shows now I'm pink. Well, that's because I'm a paladin. When we get into groups, you'll see all paladins will be pink. We want that. We also want to be able to see people's pets. If something happens and all of a sudden the hunter is picking up for the tank because he did something wrong and he went down and we're trying to get a battle res off on him, the tank or the hunter can sacrifice his pet to run in there and taunt, and the pet can taunt for a while. And hell, I might be able to do a lay on hands on that pet and let him tank one more good hit and give us time enough for me to get a battle res off on the tank. Something like that. That's why I always do that. Display health text. I do it as a health percentage. This is on enemies. Okay. I want to see how much percentage of health they have left. When you get to the higher levels, at the lower levels, not so much. You don't have to worry about it. It'll say they'll have like 143 hit points left. But at the later levels, they're going to have 12,483,000,000 hit points. So you don't want to see all that. Just put it as a percentage. Um, Arena enemy frames, we're not going to worry about that because we're not going to be doing any kind of arenas with this guide. Action bars, you saw me. I was able to turn on some of my extra action bars. Combat, uh, I turn off my personal resource display. Why? Because it clutters up the screen. Your personal resource display is just going to show your health and your mana bar right below your character. Okay. Why that? Because this thing's still open. Okay. Anyway, so like when I get into combat, all of a sudden it'll be showing my health and my mana right here, and it clutters up your screen. When you get certain things building up, like holy power, it'll start building up around you, and to me, it's just I can't even see what's going on in front of me because Blizzard wants to clutter up the screen with so much crap. You know, that's why I use add-ons for everything. They're trying to get rid of a lot of add-ons and build it in, but they don't do it well. Um, Let me make sure. I want to check with our options real quick. Make sure there's nothing else. Um, I don't worry about mature language filter. I've got a nasty tongue. I have an issue with swearing a lot. That's why there is a warning when you come to my Twitch to begin with. What I'm also going to do for right now is I'm going to block all guild invites. Um, I don't want to worry about getting invited by any guilds because we're not going to worry about guilds for now. Maybe when we get to the higher levels, I'll start doing stuff. But for the most part, new players, if you get into a guild, you're just gonna not know what you're doing. It'll be good to get into one just so that you have people to ask questions. But I really just don't even worry about it until you get to the later levels. Um, all the rest of this stuff, not stuff we really need to worry about. Combat, um, nothing else we need to worry about there. Advanced options, it's enable cooldown manager. This is something that's totally new. I hate it. It sucks. They just did not do it well at all. Again, they're trying to get rid of things like, weak auras, which is an add-on that is so customizable. Um, let's see, mounts, subtitles, graphics. We went over most of the stuff. All right, so we've gone over the basics of getting into the game, moving around, changing our keybinds up. We've got our bars set up. I am going to stop the stream here for now. Leave this guide where it's at. We've been going, I think, for about 30 minutes now. That makes this pretty long guide so far. But we did cover quite a bit. I am going to download Bartender as our first add-on. And when we come back, I will show you how to configure Bartender. It will make some of this stuff a lot easier. I am also going to download an add-on called MoveAny. That'll help take care of any of those things that we want to be able to move that we can't right now. Like right now, I can't move my backpack. I should be able to move my freaking backpack, right? And it's not going to let me. So that's one of the things that MoveAny will let us do. So I'm going to download Bartender 4 and MoveAny. And this allows us to customize where our user interface elements are. All right. And so we'll end it here, and I will see you guys on the next one.